Shalom. So it is that time of the year, after the sun crosses into the hemisphere. 14 days after that first moon is the Passover of the Most High, right? So now we are at the 15th day, but we're not going to talk about that aspect of it. We're going to talk about things that transpired at this time, right? Because we're dealing with salvation, and salvation deals with also destruction. You cannot separate the two. It's not like today in Western philosophies, people believe that, oh, you get under the water, you are saved. Oh, but his blood, you are saved. Okay. Which one are you saved by? His blood or the water? So you can only be saved when there's destruction involved. So to say you are being saved, you have to be able to point out the destruction. And we're going to get into the scriptures and see that there cannot be salvation absent destruction. Otherwise, what are you being saved from? If you're going to share your experience with somebody to say you are saved, you have to point out that I've been saved from the point of this pen. So the pen would have been destruction, and this is my salvation. This is how I was saved, right? So that's our kind of Western philosophy, but we're not dealing with Western philosophies. We're going to go into the experience of the scriptures, and we're going to deal with the faith of the gods of Egypt, understanding the plagues, right? So let's get a little bit understanding of the gods of Egypt. So the first one, according to the first plague, we're going to go look at Sobek, right? So this is just some AI generated things about them. When you get your own time, you can go ahead and look into more details on it to understand more about, oh, that's what the plagues were about, right? So Sobek was an ancient Egyptian crocodile god associated with power, fertility, and military strength, as well as a protection from the Nile's danger. So one of the things too with the other nations and with us is that we deal with the different manifestations of that one God, but we do not bow or worship them. For example, when it comes to the agricultural time of the year, you get the water season, right? The water overflows the banks of the rivers and it makes the land saturated so you can do what? You're planting, right? But we do not worship the water when it overflows the banks. So this is the difference. We go to the water for deliverance, healing, whatever it is. We go to the herbs for these things. We use the sun, the moon, and the stars, but we do not worship them. So that is the difference. These people worship the manifested things, right? We worship the unmanifested that gives the power, or that is the power in the manifested, right? So that's the difference. So these people worship the crocodile god that they think would protect them from certain things, right? So let us now go to Exodus chapter 7. Let us go to Exodus chapter 7 and verse 17. Let's start at verse 19 because I just want to get to the key points. It says, And Yahweh spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in the vessels of wood and in the vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Right? It says, And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as Yahweh had said. Because this is where the problem is, right? Like, for example, let's look at it today. Today you see China, Russia, all these countries have advanced military, missiles and so forth, hypersonic missiles and this and that. What you see certain other countries are doing now, no, they develop their hypersonic. So guess what? Their hearts are hardened because, they have hypersonic. No, I can have hypersonic. So when they should have just humbled and say, oh, shoot, There's something going on here. I used to be this powerful, then where's my power now? These people are advancing, so their heart is going to harden, say, oh, we can do that too. So let's gather the scientists, the magicians, the that, all these people, I need them, right? So it's the same concept, because what they don't understand is when the Most High is going to save his people, is not going to be, even if he works through the physical form of a man, it is going to be through nature. So he can use an animal, a plant, the wind, the seas. So that is what we refer to as the Son of God, the power of God, because he was the one that delivered the Israelites from Egypt. But how did he do this? It was working through nature. So when you see all these things taking place at the same time, or different places, earthquake over here, earthquake over there, this bombing over there, that event over there, you already see the manifestation of it ushering in, right? So it was the same. Oh, they use their scientists to explain these things. Oh, it's because of these animals died there, so this is why the bacteria comes, and so the fly comes, and they're gonna put narratives to it, because they do not understand the power of our God. That's why they have to always have a logical, so-called logical explanation to it. The Most High works through nature, so you can always put your narrative onto it. But it doesn't take away the fact that this is the power of God working, right? So we're going to see how it gets to the end of this story. So the next thing we're going to look at is the Egyptian god Heket. It's a goddess, right? And as you know, in these countries, in these kingdoms back then, what happened is when you take the seat of the king, when you sit in that seat, you earn a divine status. So this is why back then is always a god king. The king takes on the divine status of a god. So this is why they're always honored as deities, right? So they had a lot of women in those positions back then. When you marry these women, you become a pharaoh. So it's the same thing today. It's the same culture being brought up today. They just changed the names, right? But the concepts are the same, right? It says Heket was an ancient Egyptian goddess associated with fertility, childbirth, and the creation of new life, right? Let us go to Exodus 8, verse 5. It says, And Yahweh spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up out of the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. Because if they had this god or goddess called Heket, she should protect them from frogs. So that frog god, that concept, that deity, whatever it is, had no power to protect these people from their own frogs, from frogs coming up in their lands, right? But look at verse 7. It says, And the magicians did so with their enchantments and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. So again, this is what the Most High uses to harden their heart. This is their own pride. Oh, he did that, I can do it too. So that's normal. What's that? Right? You build your hypersonic, we can do it too. You build your S500, we can build a defense system too. What's that? That's nothing, right? This is pride, right? So what you see here is that the Egyptians, the magicians, they did the same thing that Moses did, right? So this was what the power was back then, right? They had the power to do it. What they didn't have the power to do was to undo it. So that's why they were calling for Moses. But today, the adversary, I'm talking about the spiritual forces, right? They are no more advanced. So they can do it, and now they can undo it. So this is where a lot of people are going to get deceived in the name of the word of God. They're going to be seeing all these miracles. Look at all these miracles work throughout the land of Egypt, and when they went into the land of Canaan, did it save them? Show me which one of the people miracle saved live in Egypt. Not one. So a lot of people today, they want to believe in that thing. There's no scripture that says you're saved by miracles. None. Right? Now let's go on to the next one. It says Kepri. Khepri was a significant scarab-faced god in ancient Egypt religion, representing the rising sun and creation. He was associated with the morning sun, rebirth, and the power of transformation, often depicted as scarab beetle or a man with a scarab head. Khepri was also linked to the sun god Re, and was believed to push the sun across the sky, much like a scarab beetle rolls a ball of dung. Let's go to Exodus chapter 8 and verse 16. It says, And Yahweh said unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man, and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. So their lives, God couldn't protect their crops or anything from these things, right? So he's just showing again to the Israelites, because the Most High, he likes to prove, right? He likes to prove. He likes to show his wrath, proving to the Israelites too that, hey, don't worship these gods. They can't do anything. Now let's go to the other one to see what's next. We have Hathor, was a prominent goddess in ancient Egyptian religion, known for her diverse roles encompassing love, beauty, music, and motherhood. She was also associated with the sky, fertility, and the protection of women. Among other things, Hathor's connection to the sun god Ra and the sky god Horus, along with her role as the Eye of Ra, also connected her to kingship and royal power. So let's go to the scriptures. Exodus chapter 9 and verse 3. It says, Behold, the hand of Yahweh is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain. And Yahweh shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is in the children of Israel. And Yahweh appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow Yahweh shall do this thing in the land. And Yahweh did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. Right? So again, the destruction is going to be taking same place. Both are going to be facing it, the righteous and the wicked. But one set will be destroyed and one set will be saved. Salvation has to be paired with destruction. You are not saved before the destruction takes place. Noah was not saved before the flood. Noah saved when he got into the ark, because if he had refused to get into the ark, he would have died. So claiming salvation prior to destruction, you're on a whole different dimensional plane, right? So we're seeing here, this was the cattle god of the Egypt of Egypt, because they worship all the different manifestations of power. So that was what was happening. They worshiped this cattle god, but this cattle god could not protect their cattle. This is why it was there. It was about the horses, the asses, the camels. It was all about those things. Again, proven to the Israelites. Now let's get into the next one, which is the favorite for the females. This is the favorite for the females. Ketesh, also known as Kadesh, was a Canaanite goddess of fertility. You see, always praising the black woman, right? It's interesting, because you can see the same thing coming up today. A lot of these men today are still, oh, the black woman is God, the black woman is God, the black woman is God, the black woman is... There is the same thing coming back up. You can see the signs of the times by the events that are taking place. It's the same thing. This worshiping of the black woman, the worshiping of the woman, right? So Kadesh is going into the goddess of love, beauty, sex, passions, and things of that nature. In Greek, you might know it as Aphrodites, or in the Roman culture, you call her Venus. That name you're more familiar with, right? But the concept is the same that they took from the ancient, and they just modernized it, change the name, and maybe alter a few things, but the concepts are the same, right? It says, Kadesh was a Canaanite goddess of fertility, sacred ecstasy, and sexual pleasure, who was incorporated into the Egyptian pantheon during the New Kingdom. So this is why I said it's always the same thing. That's why the most I said, when you get into the land, don't do what these people do. So you see all you the woman with the thing over the eye here, the under here, this makeup thing. That's where it's coming from. Yeah. It's all idolatrous practices because that was how they honor their gods back then. Just as we, for example, we would honor our God by what? Leviticus 19:27 said, do not destroy your beard. It says, do not mar the corner of your hair. Right? So when when you go to the barber, how you like to get that fresh cut, neatly trimmed, your beard neat up edges and so forth. No, you are dishonoring your God. But they don't teach you that. And they're so subtle. Oh, in order for you to get this job, you gotta be neatly shaved. They knew what they were doing when they tell you that. Because they know that the more you transgress the laws of the Most High, is the more you are being punished. Because you are in a covenant with Him. They are not. So it doesn't matter whether they shave their beard or they cut their beard or they do all these type of immoral behaviors. They are not under the same covenant as you. So this is just subtly. He said in Exodus, he says, let's deal with them wisely. You know what that wisely is? Crafty counsel. It's the same thing. That's how subtle we're gonna deal with them. Let's change the narrative. Let's give them something called Planned Parenthood. Make it seem as if you're really planning to be a parent. No. You're doing all the things the Most High commanded you not to do after the people living in those lands. And here we are adopting all the customs of the land. And what about the word of God? It bears no weight on our lives. So it says, Exodus 9 verse 8, and Yahweh said unto Moses and unto Aaron, take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh, and it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took ashes of the furnace and stood before Pharaoh and Moses. And Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. Because what? It's now destroying that beauty that you guys cherish so much. It's destroying it. And you notice what it says, in the sight of Pharaoh. Guess what? Today there's internet. So Pharaoh is always gonna see it. If Russia and China makes a new weapon, they're going to see it. Everything is out there. Right? So we have to see we have to see how the things are evolving, but it carries the same principles behind them, right? The concepts are the same. So let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next Egyptian goddess of the sky. Nut. Nut is the Egyptian goddess of the sky. Like I said, is always the black woman, right? Because the real Egyptians were black, right? Not the people you see over there now, right? And no, Cleopatra is not black. Nut is the Egyptian goddess of the sky, often depicted as a woman arced over the earth with her body as a star-filled sky. She is the mother of several important Egyptian deities and plays a key role in myths about sun's journey and the afterlife. Right? Now let us go to this plague. It says, Exodus chapter 9 and verse 22. And Yahweh said unto Moses, stretch forth thine hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon the man, and upon the beast, and upon every herb of the field, throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and Yahweh sent thunder, and hail, and fire ran along upon the ground, and Yahweh rained hail upon the land of Egypt. Remember, Fire and water are two opposing elements. The water is to put out the fire. So what you're seeing here is the power of God, which I was explaining in earlier and in other videos. What they don't understand is this is the law of nature, right? Because it is to sustain life in the earth. So the Most High is going to give the rain to the wicked and to the righteous, right? So it goes universal, that those are universal laws, right? But when it comes to the power of God, this is what they don't understand. Those things that you look at, they themselves are not the power. It's the source of power that is inside of them, right? So you're seeing here with the water and the fire, right? But let's see what actually happens. It says, so there was hail and fire mingled. You don't mingle fire and water, you know? Fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. So because they're now understanding this is judgment, right? It's the judgment of Yahweh. Remember we talk about love or mercy and vengeance or wrath. It's the two things. It's a dual nature, right? Mercy and wrath. So there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field, and break every tree of the field. So this is their sky god that was supposed to protect them from all these things. So where's that sky god? Sky god is to protect them from the thundering and the lightnings and the hails and the fire and everything. Where's that sky god? Where is her power? Right? So let's get some more on this. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 16 and we'll start reading at verse 16. It says, for the ungodly that denied to know thee were scourged by the strength of thine arm. When you hear about the right hand of God, that's judgment. That's what it is. Judgment and justice. That's the right hand. And we know who wields that power. Who is the right hand? Who is sitting on the right hand of God? Right? It says, for the ungodly that denied to know thee were scourged by the strength of thine arm with strange rains, hails, and showers were they persecuted that they could not avoid, and through fire were they consumed. For which is most to be wondered at, the fire had more force in the water. This is what I was saying. It's now defying the laws of nature. So this is showing you that the manifestation of God is different from the God himself. This is why we don't worship what we see. We worship that which we cannot see. Right? It says, however, we still use them for their intended purposes. We just do not worship them. That's the difference. Right? It says, for which is most to be wondered at, the fire had more force in the water that quencheth all things. So the water that is supposed to quench everything. For the world fighteth for the righteous. This is what I was saying. The power of God, right? The gospel of Christ is the power of God. So when we talk about the Christ, we know what we speak of. For the world fighteth for the righteous. Yes, because guess what? A lot of you guys out there, living, keeping the laws, be about your peace and so forth, and you have some people fighting against you. Guess what? You don't have to do anything. Sometimes they just go and make a certain park, a big tree just fall down on the car. Maybe not destroy them, but just to give them a warning. So you see probably the half of the car is gone, or something of that sort. You see what I'm saying? So nature fights for the just. The Most High fights through nature for the just. Even the water comes and defend you. The seas, the oceans, whatever it is, nature. That's how the Most High works. It says, for some time the flame was mitigated, that it might not burn up the beasts that were sent against the ungodly. Can you imagine that? The beasts that were sent against the ungodly. The flames were mitigated that it does not consume them. It says, but themselves might see and perceive that they were persecuted with the judgment of God. This is what I was saying about the judgment of God. For the fact that you look at what's going on there, you can see that that is the judgment of God, because the flames was supposed to consume those animals, but it didn't burn them. So you're seeing the power of God. So this is what it means when it says everyone is going to see him. What you're looking at, you know that that's not normal. There's something different there. You and your logics, your scientists cannot explain it, but you're all going to see it, right? It says, and at another time it burneth even in the midst of the water, above the power of the fire, that it might destroy the fruits of an unjust land. So that is it for their sky god, right? So remember, Adam had the opportunity. He could have been stupid as everybody else, all the other nations worshiping the sun, the moon, and the constellations. But guess what? Adam understood that, oh, the constellation, it was somebody writing to him each moon, each month, because every month the constellations change, right? Adam understood that somebody was speaking to him. So, you know, when to do this, when to do that, when to do all of these things, which I'll make another video talking about the different moons of the year and what it does and what we're supposed to do and how the knowledge is written in the constellations, right? I'll talk about that separately, but it's just showing that Adam understood that. This is why the Most High said these nations don't know him, and this is why Pharaoh said, who is Yahweh? We don't know who you're talking about. Notice in Exodus, it keeps saying, the God of the Hebrews. Remember, at this point, all the nations were already created. So for him to say the God of the Hebrews, he's telling you of all the nations, he's the God of these people. Otherwise, he would say he's the God of everybody. So now let's get into Osiris. Osiris is an important figure in ancient Egyptian mythology, but he was not a goddess, he was a god. He was the god of the underworld and the afterlife, fertility, agriculture, and vegetation. He was also associated with the death and resurrection. Osiris was married to his sister, the goddess Isis, and they had a son named Horus, right? Now let's go to the book of Exodus. Remember, this man is the god of agriculture, right? Exodus chapter 10, verse 12 says, and Yahweh said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locust, and they may come up on the land of Egypt and eat every herb of the field, even all that the hail hath left. So the ones that weren't destroyed by the hail and the fire, because remember there were some crops that were too small, that were so small they weren't destroyed. I'll have to talk about that separate too, because that has a lot to understand in the Passover and the agricultural cycling of the year, right? So there are some plants were too small, they weren't destroyed, but he destroyed the larger ones. So he's saying the locusts would come and eat up the other ones, right? He says, and Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. Let me repeat that part. It says, and Yahweh brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. Again, day and night are two separate things. So he was upon it in the day and in the nighttime, right? It says, and when it was morning, the east wind brought the locust. So he is showing that these fly god, if they had that thing, it would protect their crops. It's showing that if they had this god of their agriculture, it would protect their crops. It didn't exist. They had no power to protect their own crops. So this is why, again, we said, when it comes to certain moons of the year, we how can I say, we use it for its intended purpose. We don't worship it to say it is the reason why, these things are happening. We understand that there's a power behind it, and that power is who we worship, and that power is what we give the honors to. Now let's go to Ra, the great sun god. It says Ra is a prominent figure in an ancient Egyptian mythology, revered as the god of the sun, creation, and light. He is a central figure of the Egyptian pantheon, often depicted with a falcon's head and a human body. Ra's journey across the sky in a solar boat each day and his nightly voyage throughout the underworld were integral to the Egyptians' understanding of the cosmos and the cycles of life and death. Right? Now let's go back to the book of Exodus, chapter 10 and verse 21. It says, "And Yahweh said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be left. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward the heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days." Right? "They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings." Again, like I was saying, salvation and destruction, the two set of people are going to be the same place. Right? The righteous and the ungodly. They're going to be in the same place. It's the same events that are going to be taking place. Some will be saved and some will die. Right? Now let's get some more, because this was not just the only thing. It just not end with the 3 days of darkness there. Let's get some more. Let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, and we'll start at verse 14. Let's see what transpired in the darkness. It says, "But they sleep in the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, and which came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable hell." Right? It says, "Were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions," right? You know what apparitions are. It says, "And partly fainted, their heart failing them." Can you imagine what's going on up here? It says, "For a sudden fear, and not look far, came upon them. So then whosoever there fell down was straightly kept, shut up in a prison without iron bars." What is the prison without iron bars? Your mind. Right? That's where they were locked up in, the darkness of their minds. Because when you can't see reality for what it is what brings fear to the mind, because of the ignorance. By you not knowing, that is more dangerous than what is actually there. Let me just share one of my experiences back then. When I was yet a child, there was a Rasta man living next door, right? But his locks wasn't very long. It was, short. So I was going up to my grandmother's house. But when I went outside, there wasn't any street light. There wasn't any street light at the time, but I could see the farm. What I saw was a huge lion, right? And I froze. I stood there at my mother's gate and I couldn't move. It was when he stood up, because he bent over like this. So he was fixing the sandals, those sandals that they wear with the straps. He was fixing it. So he stood in that one position, but his locks coming over, it gave the form of a big lion. I knew in reality that there are no lions here, right? But what I was seeing there, my ignorance was more powerful than the reality that I know there are no lions here. So this is what was happening to them. Even reality could not overpower what the ignorance that was in their own minds, right? So it says, where am I now? It says, verse 17, "For whether he were husbandman or shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken and endured that necessity which could not be avoided, for they were all. It doesn't matter what you're, a doctor, a lawyer, this, that, whatever career you be, whatever, you're independent, you're whatever you be, all." It says, "For they were all bound with one chain of darkness, whether it were a whistling wind." Now, this is where it gets interesting. Imagine you're in this thick darkness, right? Darkness. Now you're hearing this whistling wind, right? Or a melodious noise of birds. Among these are the strange apparitions that the Most High sent upon them. It says, "Among the spreading branches are a pleasing fall of water running violently. Imagine you're here, water running. You know you're in your house. There's no water, no spring, no fountain, nothing close by, no falls. And then all of a sudden you hear this, this water running, right? Going on in your head. It says, are a terrible sound of stones cast down. Imagine you hear like big rocks falling from a mountain top and you're down there, right? It's it's pretty much like the thing that you see the people wear on their face and they're afraid to walk as if they're walking on the edge. You know that thing, right? That's what's going on in the mind. It says, are running out, are a running that could not be seen of skipping beasts. Imagine a stampede of big animals coming down. You cannot see it, but you can hear them coming closer and closer to you. It's getting louder and louder, right? It says, are a roaring voice of most savage wild beasts. This is a stampede. Are a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains. These things made them to swoon for fear. For the whole world shined with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor. Everyone else was going about their normal things. Nothing was happening. It says, over them only was spread an heavy night, an image that an image of that darkness which should afterward receive them, but yet were they unto themselves more grievous than the darkness. So the ignorance was more dangerous to them than the realities of the darkness. So that was it for their sun god. Their sun god could not have given them light, right? Now let's go to the last one. This is Isis, the god of resurrection, right? Isis was a prominent goddess in ancient Egyptian religion, known for her roles as the goddess of magic, protection, motherhood, and the afterlife. She was the goddess of resurrection, so she's the one that's gonna bring back the firstborn of the Egyptians. The children, the heirs, the sons, all the sons of Egypt, the firstborn, right? So this one Isis is gonna bring them back, right? So let's observe her magic. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 12, and verse 29. It says, and it came to pass that at midnight, the night of the 14th, so that would have been last night, right? It says that at midnight Yahweh smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captivity. So from the highest to the lowest, it doesn't matter what title you bear, you're all subject to the same punishment. From the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So this is what I was saying. So the Most High was just proving to them, hey, these things that you're worshiping, come on, man. But anyway, you're in captivity. I'm gonna let you be. I'm gonna go easy on you. But you see, the moment you get out of that, if you take that mindset with you, no, you're gonna feel my wrath. But in captivity, you get more what's it called? He's more lenient, right? But when you're free, you better make sure. This is why the purging, the mental purge, is necessary before the physical purge. So he's destroying all these, he's casting down all these vain imaginations of different deities, different gods and goddesses. So now you go out there, when you start to see the power of God working, you should no longer have any thoughts or memories of those in your consciousness anymore, right? No, I did a video recently talking about taking our left behind. I was talking about the salvation and the destruction. Let's read Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18 and verse 7. It says, so of thy people, because this was all the most I was dealing with when he, did the plagues. It says, so of thy people was accepted both the salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies. This is one of the hardest things for people to perceive today. Everyone wants salvation, but no one wants their enemies destroyed. Even, let us go to this book of Luke, let's go to the book of Luke. I think chapter 1, maybe somewhere in 72. Let me see where it is. I'm looking for something. Verse 71 says that, all right, let me start from 70. It says, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. From the beginning, everybody knew this. He says, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. This is a scripture that they cannot accept. They just want to be saved from nothing. So this is when you say, okay, mention these people are the people who are oppressing us. They don't want to hear that they're going to be destroyed. They just want to hear that everybody's going to be saved. That's the mindset. So this is why in Wisdom of Solomon it says they finally accepted that salvation for the righteous, but destruction for the enemies. Today, the people want to accept salvation for the righteous and salvation for the enemies. No destruction. That's Western philosophy. However, if you get it, you get it. Some people will continue to defend the Egyptian Egyptology. You know, all of these things. Like I said, the difference with the other nations and us is that we understand that the manifestations of God, we use them for the powers that they're intended for, but we do not reverence them as in we worship them. Right? So, shalom.